Catechism in 40 days. We are at day 28, I believe, and this is, we're marching through the Ten Commandments. We've reached the Sixth Commandment. Thou shalt not commit adultery. This is the, let's see, if, for those keeping score at home, as we've been going through these 10 Commandments, we said the first 3 are about God, the last 7 are about our obligations to our neighbor. We are on the Sixth Commandment. So in terms of these ones, with our obligation to our neighbor, we started with our parents, who are our first neighbors. Honor your father and your mother. Then we talked about the good of human life itself. You should not kill, so you shouldn't kill your neighbor. And then that, which is the fifth commandment. And then here we are about the good of the source of human life, which is physically the union of man and woman, which of husband and wife, divinely ordained to be the means by which human life comes into the world. This itself is to be protected. The origin, the sources of human life are safeguarded here by this prohibition against adultery. You shall not commit adultery. Adultery is literally the word in our English word adultery comes straight out of the Latin ad ultus. Ultus is the Latin word for an other, and ad ultus means to be towards an other. And in marriage, the promise is made between spouses, forsaking all others. And so to be an adulterer, is to go against your promise to forsake all others. It's exactly the breaking the promise of fidelity. I promise to be true to you, and so instead to be towards another is directly to break the promise of fidelity, which is one of the essential goods of marriage. And as we said, the purpose of this commandment, this sixth commandment, is to safeguard marriage as the source, as the place where life finds its source. Human life is to come into the world divinely ordained through the natural union of spouses, and this is for the good of the offspring. This is good for of the children that are involved. So that similarly excluded and by this commandment, or anything that would offend and direct offenses against the way that human life is supposed to come into the world. So not just adultery itself, but anything of the similar nature. So all sins, all offenses against the origins of human life, the action by which that sexual intimacy by which human life comes into the world. So similarly excluded are fornication and homosexual acts and masturbation and pornography and contraception. All of these are similarly excluded. Any deviant sexual activity is excluded as injurious to and a degradation of the good and noble means by which it pleased God to bring human life into the world. So that uniquely spousal privilege is to be defended as integral and is protected by this prohibition in the Sixth Commandment. Let's see, what else can we say about it? I think a lot of folks might not understand what is. Let's take contraception for instance. How come that's excluded? There's surely a couple is able to determine for themselves, how they want to bring children into the world. Say, well, yes, it's true. But what's excluded in contraception is exactly what would be the direct frustration of the procreative potential of the of that of the spousal action by which God intends to bring life into the world. So the frustration of procreation is exactly what's accomplished. That in contraception, contraception is literally an intention against conceiving. And what's promised on the wedding day, in addition to fidelity, and just as that promise of fidelity isn't for a while during the marriage, only subsequently to be broken. It's a permanent fixture in marriage. Fidelity is so too is this openness, this radical disposition of being in favor of and not at and never against conception. And so this radical disposition of being open to receiving life into your marriage. The question is asked to the couple: will you accept children lovingly from God and bring them up according to the law of Christ and His Church? Just as the question is asked: will you love and honor each other as husband and wife for the rest of your lives? And it's because both agree, yes, they affirm that they have they want to proceed in that way, that they have no intention against that only because they express that can they then proceed to marry. So subsequently, should they act against it, as in an act of adultery or an act of contraception, such actions are directly injurious and harmful and offensive and sinful to the spouses, to the marriage, and to God. So that goes for the question of contraception. I think similarly, the way that children come into the world has to be honored, and so also excluded here is this idea that that children can be gotten outside of the natural means by which God intended them to come into the world, the spousal union. So instead of technology or technicians in some sort of a laboratory, which has become increasingly popular and an increasingly lucrative industry these days. The assistive reproductive technologies industry, which is really ordered towards fertilization in vitro. Folks who are stuck in morning commutes will often hear repeatedly advertisements for on the radio, for instance, for in vitro fertilization clinics, that this means of God's way of bringing children into the world is always to be honored, and that a child is never to be reduced to sort of a commodity that that can be trafficked through a sort of a bill of sale. As a kind of a contract with a fertility clinic or anything like that, that children have the right to come into the world through exactly that loving union of spouses, which is the natural union there that God has planned, and never to be reduced to wondering whether they were reduced to, as I said, sort of a technological transaction by someone through a laboratory. So we were God. It pleases God that we should be conceived in the wombs of our mothers. So I just mentioned that too because lots of folks think that this is illicit. I mean, we're trying to get pregnant, and at all costs, right? I mean, even at great cost. It's like, yeah, well, there's it's not true that the ends justify the means, and so just so we have to be careful here. And I think I mentioned in the previous one. This similarly goes for we in terms of if a couple chooses to hold off from getting pregnant at any particular moment, I mean the way to pursue that is abstaining from that spousal privilege during those times of fertility for the good reason that the couple has determined that's truly good for why they have to hold off. That's the way, as opposed to simply sort of letting it be a matter of yielding to sort of worldly desires. So, okay, these are just some of the things here, and thanks for listening. We'll see you in the next one.